we're quite an honest city. So people tell you what they think, and I think Leeds is better for that. People will continue to tell me what they think. I think everyone in the city's got my email address, and that's exactly as it should be, because I need to hear how things are going.
You have a different view in a year's time, but no.
Maybe. We've got a life expectancy gap of 11 years between Hunslet and Harewood, 12 years for women. Growing up as a gay teenager in the late 90s was fine and fun, but wasn't always like completely fine and fun.
I can well imagine. Leeds was described in the Times as a funky sibling recently.
Yeah, enjoyed that.
Is the Northern Square Mile a real thing? Welcome, Ed.
Thank you.
To the latest in our series of podcasts where we're meeting people who are shaping Leeds and shaping Yorkshire. So if you could just start by introducing yourself and tell me a little bit about what you do, that would be great.
Sure. So I'm Ed Whiting. I am the Chief Executive of Leeds City Council. I've been in that job for about 8 or 9 months, depending on which day we're on today. Absolutely love it. My job is to be the sort of chief officer for Leeds City Council. So no one elected me. I work for the politicians, whoever is our sort of elected leadership and the members of our council, the councillors. But I lead our group of staff, around 14,000 people, doing all sorts of things to support Leeds to thrive, to move, to work, and to grow. So I support all the different services that people will see around them.
On a day-to-day basis, everything in civic life comes down to you, Ed, does it?
I mean, it's slightly grand. My job, I think the key bit is the support bit. So, my job is really to help us find what's the direction, what's the right direction for the council? How can the council best also help the city as a whole? So how do we sit alongside lots of other organisations and leaders? I think help us with some of those trade-offs. So there's always choices to make in every big organisation. Help to also to make sure our values are right. So how are we serving the city of Leeds? How are we working with one another as human beings? And again, my job is to help us to find how can we best do that and help us to live those every day. And that's a lot of what I spend my time doing with our teams.
And what's your journey? How did you end up in Leeds? How did you end up applying for this role? I mean, challenging times, no?
Yeah. Job of a lifetime, honestly. So I was born and bred in Leeds, born in St James's, grew up in Roundhay. My mum worked for the council. She was a music teacher. Used to work around the city a lot. So every evening at tea time, she'd bring stories of different schools and different places.
Peripatetic, is that?
Peripatetic music, that's right. Taught the cello, and then lots of class teaching as well, normally involving an improbable range of instruments. So there'd normally be a sitar and a harmonium somewhere, but probably 6 or 7 violins and usually a trumpet or a glockenspiel just to make things interesting. So I grew up with the city around me quite a lot, actually. And my dad worked at the university, so lots in kind of the education sector. I left to go to university, and then I moved to London after that, and I joined the civil service. So for a lot of my career to date, not all of it, I've worked in the civil service in different departments. Ministry of Justice, working on legal aid, courts and judges. Moved to the Treasury, where I worked for one of the worst named teams in the history of government, which is the Financial Stability Unit in August 2008, which is pretty wild.
That must have been a wild ride. Goodness me.
Yeah, I mean, one of those times when you learn a hell of a lot quite fast. But it was pretty hair-raising stuff. And then after that, worked in different departments, ended up in number 10 Downing Street, where I was the private secretary to David Cameron and then Theresa May for a bit. And then I went to the Wellcome Trust, where I worked on medical research as their director of strategy for 6 years. All of that was in London. I stepped out, had bits of stepping out as well, worked in a place called Nesta, where we did social innovation, how can volunteering help improve public services. I started a crowdfunding website for a year, which was an absolutely exhausting experience that I will never do again, but I learned a ton of stuff from that. Arts projects. So, basically the proposition of how do getting people involved in the creative process and seeing the inside of amazing projects, how might that encourage them to contribute to those projects and make them happen? And it's something that has really taken off over the last 10 years or so. But when we were doing it about 2011, we were the second crowdfunding site in the UK. And that was firstly starting something from scratch and being that kind of almost, if you don't fix it, no one else will kind of a role was a great experience. Also, just being out there every day talking about it and completely focused on that was a fascinating experience as well. Learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about what I did and didn't enjoy. And then I say welcome, and then that was all in London. But in 2021, my partner and I moved back up to the north, to West Yorkshire, partly to be closer to family. My parents are still in Leeds, and my partner, David, his family's in Liverpool, so we're between the two. And then starting to work up with lots of local authorities on economic growth. So back into government, working on what was called levelling up. Then in the
working for national government, but
that's
in
right,
the regions.
But in Leeds. And I got to know the team here in Leeds, working on all sorts of bits of the regeneration story for Leeds. So I got to know the team, got to know Tom pretty well, Tom Reardon, my predecessor. And then when the job came up, it really felt like, for me, the chance to put together a ton of stuff that I'd learned and done before in different jobs, but actually do it in a city that I really love, and at a time when, I genuinely believe there's stuff ahead for us in the city that is exciting, and I'm really optimistic about the future. I think clear-eyed about the challenges as well, because, my goodness, it is tough. It's tough for lots of organisations and individuals in our city, and people and residents, but knowing that the council's got a role to help and support in that. So trying to say, look, if I can do something that helps the city to move forward over the next 10 years, that would be the highlight of a career and the honour of a lifetime. So I applied for it. It was a bit speculative. I went through a long process.
I'm sure you did.
I guess, the more the process carried on, the more I realised that, the Leeds bit of this was the most important bit. This wasn't just about any local authority. It was about where the city's going, and lots of talk with councillors, with members of staff, with stakeholder groups in the city. I realised that for me, that was the core of the whole job. And so it meant that when I was lucky enough to get the job about a year ago, it really felt it's the most meaningful thing I'll ever do in my life, to do this work. So yeah, it's been great.
So you say you're clear-eyed. I mean, I came to see you early in your tenure, sticking my nose in where as usual. But I was struck by. I mean, I suppose I was sort of selfishly keen to share my thoughts about the city, having been in here, you've been here a long time, and somebody who's I love Leeds and I love what it stands for, but I also understand the challenges. So I'm really interested to hear that you're clear-eyed about what lies ahead, because I think that realism sometimes is lacking in local authorities, and they can sometimes fall victim to not being clear-eyed, wearing the rose-tinted spectacles, and therefore making the wrong choices around priorities. So that encourages me, and I think it'd be interesting to hear from you how you would kind of sum up the sort of challenges that authorities are facing generally across the country, I suppose. People will be aware of what the challenges are to varying degrees, and then specifically what you think the challenges in Leeds are. Yeah.
So I think for the local government sector, I think most people listening to this podcast will have heard the story before about what the past 15 years of significant financial change, austerity, just significantly less money from central government going into the local government sector, what that has felt like. And that's been true in Leeds. It's been true in other places too. I do think in Leeds, my predecessors managed to hold on to a number of services that other cities have lost.
Right.
I'm proud we still do have a museum and gallery service. Proud we still do run a lot of the things that we do, that we're able to support the third sector around the city. We've got this thing called the Community Anchors Network, which
I'm aware of that.
Really built after COVID. And that's there, and we are supporting it. So the money going into the sector has just, it's been decimated. And at the same time, the needs, the complexity, and when we talk about complexity, we're talking about lives. The needs that people have of each other and of local government have increased. The needs of vulnerable children are more complex now than they were, and there are good measures on this. The youth justice system, what it's experiencing, more complex now than they were 10, 15 years ago. We have an aging population, and that's a good thing. It means people are living longer, and our challenge is how do we help people to live full, long, healthy lives. We know that has meant an increased demand for adult social care, and we see that in our budget. So you've got this thing of the sort of central government money reducing. You've got increased demand on those services, particularly in those social services, social care services. And then alongside that links to increased demand for some of the core things that we offer, like council housing, where we've had real challenges to keep the affordable housing pipeline going. We've done a good job in Leeds, but the housing waiting list is way too long here. We know that, and that has been a real challenge. So over the last 15 years, I mean, massive changes. And that has meant that the sector has changed a lot and has been really tough. And I know it's been exhausting for lots of people working in the sector.
I've seen that.
I think when you talk about Leeds as a city within that, I would say, and this is not putting the rose-tinted spectacles on, but I'm fundamentally optimistic about the future. In order to get to that future, we will keep having to push ourselves on some key principles, like how do we best create partnerships across the city that don't just, it's not just about, getting other people to do stuff. It is saying we all care about where Leeds is headed. How can we all bring our best A game to helping that to happen? How do we work upstream with families? So in Leeds, we've done some really innovative stuff over the last 20 years, including getting families around the table earlier than anywhere else when there's a vulnerable child involved, to say, well, look, how can we support families to solve the problems themselves rather than take the problem off their hand, take the challenges they're facing off their hands. We've done that. We need to do more of that. We need to wrap those services together, because often a complex person is within a complex family, and that family needs support as a family, not just as individuals. And we have to see the whole family. We know all of this. This is not new in local government, but over the coming years, we're doing this in Leeds. We're going to need to keep on doing it and doing it at pace, because that's also the only way. It's one of those moments where doing the right thing for families and for people and individuals also saves us money. And that is going to be the way that we navigate through the coming years with the NHS, with other partners around the table too. So the challenges we face are not that unusual in terms of social care, the need for our services. As a city as well, and we've talked about this a lot, Jonathan, is as a city grows, we see, an increased challenge around rough sleeping, around homelessness. That often links to that question of complex lives and how do you best support people to take control of their lives and really, work with them in a long-term way. You see that it's visible in the city. And next month, we're going to work with a ton of people across the city to say, all right, what do we do to support these individuals? Because that really matters to our city and our economy and our city centre. So our future will be bound together with everyone who cares about the city together. We as a council really have to continue to take decisions that say, right, work upstream, work with families, look at the whole individual, look at their whole context, and make sure that public services are meeting them where they are, in order to also then save the money to ensure that we are financially sustainable. It's been well publicised when we talk about the council challenges. We're trying to save £107 million this year. We're doing all right. We've done a lot of those savings, not all of them yet, and we have some real challenges in those social services still. We have to keep on that in order to be sustainable. So we have to do that, but we live in a city that's growing. So for us as a council, for the city, we've got great investment coming in. We have businesses and sectors that are doing really well. How do we get that sense of growth and opportunity in a way that's authentic and really, really help that to drive the city forward? And that's kind of what my job is.
Wow, some job. A couple of things jump out there. So you said that Leeds has managed to preserve services that other authorities haven't, which is, maybe news to some people. Why do you think that is, or how do you think they've managed to do that?
So the first thing is to say, I know that a lot of residents will quite rightly feel there's stuff that we've lost that shouldn't have been lost, and there's stuff that has changed that shouldn't have changed. And I'm not pretending that's not the case. Yeah. So first off, I want to acknowledge that, and I've heard that from people as well. Yeah. I think, when I used to work with lots of councils in my old job, talk about culture where we aren't funding as much as we used to, but we still run a set of galleries around the city. A lot of the services we have 17 leisure centres that we're really proud of, community hubs around the city that, again, we're really proud of. We've been able to, partly we're big enough as a city, we're the second biggest local authority, unitary local authority in the country. That means we have a base that gives us has given us a little bit more resilience than others. We've taken fairly cautious decisions over time to make sure that we're prioritising and protecting those social services and the services that residents need. I think there have been some good decisions over those 14 years. Because of the way that we've worked, we've been largely done okay on our own financial resilience, and we've had reasonable reserves over the years. So, there's a set of things that have been good, prudent decisions, but we see the same headwinds that others do, and that's what we grapple with now.
And the second thing that stands out is the you talk about going upstream and trying to tackle issues earlier in that cycle of deprivation and exclusion. Tim Riley described it to me as the left shift. And there are parts of the world where they're very much more acceptant of that notion of drawing forward investment earlier in the cycle to therefore save capital down the line. And I think anybody would understand the logic and sense in that.
Yep.
And I can remember Tim, I think it was at the CCGs at the time, saying to me that it's a big ship to turn. It's going to take a while to turn that ship round and actually encourage cross-parliamentary sessions that we have to do this and stay committed to that. Do you think can we have a Scandinavian approach to that, an Australian, Canadian approach to that, do you think?
I think we can learn from what those other countries have done. I think it's not binary of you either do prevention or you treat people who are sick. I think as a country, we just have to do a number of things at once. So for instance, Rob, who leads the Integrated Care Board for West Yorkshire, he's quite rightly said, look, electives, waiting lists, getting them down is an article of faith for the NHS, and rightly so, because if you've been stuck on a waiting list for months and months and months, you are morally owed the operation that is a moral thing to make sure you can access the care that you need. When we say, we want that left shift, we also do want to make sure we're treating people who need that treatment.
But the numbers of those that need that treatment ideally will decline if you take that shift.
And you need to do it over
That's
time.
How you balance your book.
But the way I say it's not binary, I think there is a lot that we are doing that is having that impact already, that preventative impact. I think about my dad had a major heart operation about sort of 4 years ago, and he was immediately referred into Active Leeds, the council service that got him into doing more yoga in the last 4 years than he's done in his entire life. And that I know has quickened his recovery and has made him more resilient, his health more resilient. That is true. You see those examples every day. And it really is, how does the NHS dock into the leisure centres, the neighbourhood networks who do amazing work to prevent loneliness and disconnection becoming this health issue that we know it can be? How do you get that connective tissue working? Because when it does, we see it in the city. There are preventative. How does creative and culture sectors help to do that connection? We see it. We just got to do more of it, and we just got to make sure the money follows that need as well. Which I think it is possible over time. But what I don't want to set up this sort of binary choice between saying you can either have a good A&E or you can have a preventative service. You've got to just keep valuing both and move the money to prevention over time as you can.
Interesting. We've talked before about the pressure on the cost of the delivery of statutory services, and I was chatting to Charlotte about it earlier from Yorkshire Children's Charity about the fine line between the services that she's providing as a charity and the services that an authority would formally provide through the statutory process. And do you think I've always felt strongly that there's a real future in that model. I know you already do some of that work, and it's not rocket science, it's not new, but it strikes me that because of the trust that communities have for these groups, and therefore because of the outcomes that tend to be achievable and the value for money that is achievable alongside that there is a scenario where the impact of cuts in central funding could be mitigated quite significantly through those model partnerships with third sector groups.
Totally. They are. You saw it in COVID, I think, in Leeds as much as anywhere. The organisations that really reached people were not always the council organisations. They were the ones who have that established relationship and a bit of that independence as well, and reach and identity. And I've seen it. So in my first year, I'm visiting every ward of the city, of which we have 33, and I've visited 13 so far. And you'll always see 2 or 3 sort of really embedded, integrated third sector organisations, normally with 1 or 2 leaders who will probably tell you 6 or 7 things you've done wrong, but will also tell you how they're reaching people that you can't.
They're duty bound to do that, Ed.
It's their job. Totally get it. No, it's great, and it's really helpful. But I would call out, in Leeds, we're lucky. We've got, Catch in Hare Hills, Hamar in Beeston, Old Fire Station in Gipton, and many, many others around the city who are just armly helping hands, just doing brilliant work at reasonable scale. We're so lucky. And our job as a council is to support those organisations and to hopefully support the networks and ecosystem that surrounds each of those neighbourhoods, and that is something I know the political leadership here is really keen to do as well.
I was a trustee at the old fire station for as long as I was legally allowed to be, and saw it from acquisition through refurbishment to occupation, and then COVID, and then the kind of settling period, if you like. And it's really telling that has been funded entirely independently of the authority, largely through the benevolence of Jimmy Heselden, rest his soul, and through the income that's created by the various work streams that happen there. And the impact assessment that was done by Leeds Beckett said that it was returning £20 per annum of value per pound invested. And that model, so the authority, it's not costing the authority to deliver that. It's trusted by the community, and it's therefore enabled to deliver amazing outcomes. And you mentioned them. It's a great example of what is achievable in a context where capital isn't necessarily the council's problem.
Totally. It is a necessity. It is where we are, and we need the humility as a charity as a council to really recognise what they're doing, and to for a number of organisations around the city to honour that. And those are the discussions we have. And sometimes the discussions are tough. Organisations saying, look, sure, we need you as a council to step up, and where we can, we will.
Do you as a council, as a chief exec, do you see that third sector model as part of the solution?
Yeah, I think so.
There are challenges, I accept, but
I think it is the solution. And as I say, what I mentioned before, it's how the weaving together of lots of statutory services with the third sector, with other organisations. In Leeds we have the Anchors Network, the business anchors, who are businesses who really care about the growth of the city and are both financially and with their time investing in the city. For me, the future of cities is how those different sectors and organisations weave their work together. That's not something. It's something that's easy to say, but really hard to do. And I think that is the work that we're all on in Leeds. Many other places are. We're not unique in this, but I think we're really on that journey now as a city. And part of my job is to help us sort of accelerate that, and with obviously with honesty about that, and saying, look, there are tough decisions as we do it, but our job is to be in this together for the city.
And I sense that your perspective, passion, strength of feeling, and your eloquence in the way you present your thinking will be critical to that process of taking people with you, because there's material change there.
Yeah.
And it will require genuine vision and leadership to make that change, I think.
But it's also finding the people who've got that vision as well. So my job is partly to make sure we're doing right by the city as a council and support our elected leadership to set that direction for the city. But it's also to help find others, who are the other people who want to take our city forward, and how can we work with them and empower and support them? And there are a lot of them. So in a way, a city grows through the work of hundreds of people. It doesn't grow through having a good council, although having a good council does help. And my job is to help those other people to have their voice heard, to have power at the table, and to do the best work of their lives, really, in the city.
And I would say that is your single biggest asset, is that body of people, many of whom I've interacted with in various different ways over the years, is so willing, so able, so wanting to see positive change and really good outcomes and futures for the people of this city, that if you can switch them on, and if you can engage them in a new way, and I sense that's your determination, I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised about the depth of that resource. It's huge. It's huge.
And it's in so many different places. And it comes from so many different places. You don't have to be a chief executive of anything to love the city.
Absolutely.
And I've heard that. When I started, and actually this is taking the rose-tinted spectacles off, I was saying to lots of people, we talk a lot about this idea of team leads, of everyone working together in this magic soup of wanting the city to grow. And I was like, come on, is this real? Is this, what is going on here? And it got a bit boring. A lot of people just going, yeah, it completely is. And actually, it's the only way we're going to work as a city. And it is, I've tested it, honestly, in private rooms, saying, look, you please tell me that this isn't real. And they're like, no, it is. And this is what we want to do next. So yes, we have honest disagreements. Yes, sometimes things are hard. But the sense of whether you're from here, whether you've chosen here, people really care and want this city to succeed. And for me, that is one of the best things for my job is that I know that there's a ton of people around, all of whom get out of bed in the morning and want the city to thrive. And that does make my job easier, and does make it fun too.
So yesterday you launched the City Ambitions.
Yep.
I was going to write them on my hand.
Yeah. I did that yesterday.
Have you rubbed them off?
I have washed my hands since, sadly.
Okay. So healthy, growing, thriving, and resilient, if I'm correct. And if I was a cynic, which of course
which
I'm
you're not.
I've been around a fair while, and I've seen a number of initiatives come and go. Without naming them, I think there have been a few, and I really want to believe that this is it, and the city as an authority and its people are going to make this the initiative that really does deliver what it says it's going to deliver. I really want to believe that.
Yep.
And my only cynicism comes from my past experience. So how, as the owner, if you like, as the executive owner of that initiative, how are you going to give it the best shot? You can't deliver guarantees, I understand that. How are you going to give it your best shot?
So firstly, I really believe in the ambitions and the idea of a whole city coming together behind specific things, not just a wafty sense that we want to be good, but actually what we're actually going to do about it. I think you should suspend that belief for a little while. Let's see how it goes.
I'm prepared to. Yeah.
But
I want it to happen.
Yeah, but actually, I say to cynics, that's fine. Be cynical, but come with us as you be it, and let's see if we can disprove that over time. For me, what we've tried to do is we've set the ambitions up, and they genuinely have been the subject of an incredibly long set of conversations over the last 6 months or so, of saying what matters, what's working, how do we grow and build stuff. There are a few things we're trying to do to make sure they do stick and to give them a sense of just a framework for the city's drive change. So it's not all the answers, but it's saying, look, if we get these 4 things really motoring here, this city is going to feel amazing, and we're going to tackle the poverty and inequality that we see here. So firstly, being specific enough. So choosing those 4 ambitions, the health and well-being of the city. We've got a life expectancy gap of 11 years between Hunslet and Harewood, 12 years for women. Thriving, that sense of communities, finding common ground at a really hard time, and also services and everyone supporting clean, safe neighbourhoods really matters. We know that matters in so many places. Inclusive economic growth, where you have weight on both the growth itself, we desperately need it, and the inclusive bit. It has to touch the whole city. And then that resilience bit, where we talk about the sustainability, net zero still being in our sights, but actually also what it means for daily life in Leeds. So the green spaces of our city, and we do have a green city. How does that connect and make sense in people's daily lives? So I think we start off with 4 relevant things. Secondly, we've got these things called conveners, these people who work in these organisations. None of them are in the city council. They are people who sit outside. They're organisations, Voluntary Action Leeds, leading thriving work. Rosa in the Leeds Climate Commission, convening together the climate work. Sarah Monroe, who's the Chief Executive of the Community Hospital and Mental Health Trust, convening the work on the Healthy City. And Peter Slee, who's the Vice Chancellor of Beckett University, convening on economic growth. Those are people who will bring together the plan over the next year, and they'll hold us honest to it as well. And they are not paid by the council to do it. They are volunteering, and they're going to bring together, with all the messy chaos of the city, bring together those plans. So by next year, we'll have those plans. They will be specific enough, with specific outcomes indicators and a little bit of how it's going to feel. And then it's up to us to all collectively to all get together and deliver it. We are going to do the things that we hope will mobilise the kind of support we need. So we're going to do work on philanthropy, both for culture and community organisations. We're going to do work on how our procurement gets social value out and really gets it to the places of the city that need it most, we're doing a bit of that. We can do a slightly better job, I think. And also we're going to do work on evaluation. So the 2 universities, Beckett, 2 of our 7 universities, Beckett and Leeds University, have both agreed that in about sort of 4 or 5 years' time, they'll do a city evaluation. And that is the first time that universities anywhere have come together to say, right, we're invested in this city. We're going to look across these 4 ambitions. We're going to see if they're adding up to anything. So we know that as a city, we will be held honest by proper, rigorous academic evaluation in a few years' time. So we've got a framework that I think brings people together, has clarity, has that sense of ownership way outside the council, and a sense of seeing if it's adding up to anything. I think those are the right pieces.
I agree.
But the challenge is ours. Like, this is not, we are not going to be able to do this as a council of saying, right, come on, everyone, let's sort it out. This is everyone taking the bull by the horns, pick your metaphor, and really going for it, because we have to.
I think choosing external conveners is absolutely the right thing to do, and a really good signal about a kind of change of culture and direction that says this is not about the city owning this project. This is actually, let's throw it out there.
Yeah.
Let's get these brains and these people, these careers working on this thing. I think that's absolutely the right way to go.
And again, Jonathan, you don't have to be a chief executive to have a stake in where these are going.
No,
this is for everyone. There are people who are doing work at the minute who love the city and are going to come up with ideas and initiatives and things to do that really push us forward, who, they're somewhere in the city and I don't know where. They're going to emerge. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And empowering that group and getting them pulled out by people other than the council is absolutely critical. And they will be some of those living in those communities where life expectancy is falling fastest.
Yes.
Definitely. And every year, Ian Cameron, the Director of Public Health at the time, said to me when I first met him that every time he picked up his pen or his mouse to write his annual report, he shuddered that he had to report diminishing life expectancy in certain areas. I think starting to show there is a genuine intent to address that, I think, is so important for everybody.
And you know what? But there are also slivers of light on that. So we've done this work with Michael Marmot, who is this real thinker and moral force on health inequalities. Yeah. And that's led to a ton of work on housing and health that says if you live in a drafty, mouldy, sort of crumbling house, it really hurts your health. So we've taken decisions as a council around all sorts of things on our housing policy and tracked the health impact of that, including sort of selective licensing, sort of how we think about homes in the city more broadly. We take that is now happening. We are seeing the first fruits of that, and it looks like it might be just chipping away at that life expectancy gap a little bit. And that's only a couple of years. This will take time.
Of course.
But that sense of how you pull these things together, housing, health, social support, community engagement, isolation, I think there is more that we can do on some of that, and I do think we can chip away at it. Also, look, I look at the city of when I grew up to now, and it is totally different. Personally for me, growing up as a gay teenager in the late 90s was fine and fun, but wasn't always like completely fine and fun.
I can well imagine.
And I'm not saying it's easier today, but it's certainly different. And I certainly feel, as a gay man now working in Leeds, it's I love it. I feel completely welcome and included as part of the city. The city can change and evolve to meet the needs of the people who are living there. We have done. Look at how neighbourhoods and communities have developed. Spent a lot of time working with communities in Chapeltown, and that is a community that has developed hugely over the last sort of 15, 20 years, thanks to people like Arthur France and others who have made change happen with significant investment. Now, we're not done. The community is not done there at all. But things can get better and things can change.
I think you said a few minutes ago that cynicism is a threat to that process, and I put my cynical cards on the table. But I wouldn't be the sort of cynic that would say I'm a cynic, therefore I'm not going to give this a go, or I'm not going to get behind you, because the way you've just described your thinking around that process gives me the most confidence I could probably have that it's actually been thought, conceived, in the right way to give it the best chance of success. And I think you'll find that if you articulate the way those ambitions have been developed, you will re-engage with more and more cynics.
Yeah.
Because I think they will hear the intent and the intelligence around how you've brought that to be, and the independent measure, the kind of independent 4 or 5 years time. Right, let's have a proper look at the impact of what we've done. And I'm sure you will re-engage a load of people.
Well, look, The other
sure
thing
you
is,
will.
well, the thing I've really noticed since I've started, and I do mean this, we're quite an honest city. So
We are definitely an
people
honest city.
people tell you what they think, and I think Leeds is better for that. People will continue to tell me what they think. I think everyone in the city's got my email address, and that's exactly as it should be, because I need to hear how things are
You
going.
might have a different view in a year's time, but no.
Maybe, but look, they're going to be honest, and that's great. And I take the cynicism now, but the only ask is, come with us. Let's see where we can go. It's going to take time, and I hope to dispel it.
But the difference in messaging and the difference on people's morale between our life expectancy in our poorer communities, Holbeck, is declining every year, particularly amongst women, which is the only set of data that exists in the United Kingdom. It's bizarre, but to say that that is the fact, and then say that actually yes, we recognise that, and we have a strategy to chip away, and it will take time. Yeah. We have a scientifically founded strategy to chip away at that, which means long-term investment in certain work streams. Yeah. That gives me another level of confidence. And, don't think it's that hard to start to properly re-engage those who've perhaps been a little bit initiatived out, shall we say, if that makes sense. Very briefly, Leeds was described in the Times as a funky sibling recently.
Yeah, enjoyed that.
Is the Northern Square Mile a real thing?
Yeah, it is actually.
Is it? Okay.
It's going to be an even more real thing as we go. So
yeah, I think you've answered my question. So there is going to be some public identification of the said square mile.
We're working on it.
Yeah,
Don't know quite what it looks like
the
yet.
Times reporting was accurate, which
it's not completely inaccurate, which is pleasing.
That makes a difference. But I did chuckle at the funky. I really don't know what it means. I guess I'll ask you one more question then. So the tram.
Yeah.
I lived and breathed the super tram debacle back in the day.
Yeah.
And many of the residential developers I was working with at the time were paying Supertram contributions through their planning Section 106 agreements. And we never saw the tram.
Yep.
And I wondered, I look at Manchester, sorry to say the M word, but
people do.
I see the good in Manchester. And I'm not blind to the bad. And there are many things which I would have done differently in terms of developing the city centre. But I look at Manchester, I look at Bolton, I look at Stockport, I look at Manchester, I look at rapid transport, and then I look at Leeds, and I look at Bradford, and I think tram. I don't know if I look at Leeds, St James's, Ellen Road, White Rose, and think tram. And I just wondered what your kind of high-level thoughts about the biggest benefits, should it come, what the biggest benefits of the tram would be for Leeds and or Bradford.
So look, there's an economic reason why a bigger and better transport system makes a ton of sense for both Leeds and Bradford, because the effective city size, the true size of our city centre in terms of how many people can make it to work in a reasonable amount of time, is spectacularly small compared to lots of European counterparts and other cities. So partly because of housing density, and we are building quite a lot, but also because of transport. It's really hard to get around. People do and do a great job of it. We think the tram is a really good way of doing it because you can move lots of people at some pace. And we do believe it's going to connect people in the city and communities and neighbourhoods in ways that are frankly not connected. You can walk a relatively short space of time and feel like you've travelled a huge distance.
Yeah, it's true.
This will help that connection. And I do think something that can do that at scale will just change the game in ways that we don't fully realise yet. But I think, said economically, what it will do will be enlarge the size of the effective city size of both cities. I travel through Bradford often, and there is huge potential in that city. The city centre in Bradford is beautiful now.
I agree.
And the opportunity for those two cities, the two leadership teams of Bradford and Leeds were meeting next week to sort of share thoughts and keep working closely together. That is a size of, 1.3, 1.4 million. That is a really big
that is Manchester and Stockport. That's exactly what it is. And in Stockport,
and transport is integral to that.
100%. 100%. So there are fund-owned buildings in Stockport, residential rental buildings, BTR schemes, that are letting up at a rate because you can go to the station. You don't have to look at a timetable. You go to the station, you can be in Manchester city centre in 7, 8, 10 minutes.
Yep.
So just briefly, Ed, summarise your... Tom Reardon was here 14 years. And I very much hope you are too. So let's say you are. And at the end of those 14 years, you leave. what would, as you look back, what would success look like for you? What do you feel you have to achieve?
I think we've got to make progress on what is holding our city back. And I think if we do that, and by that I mean healthy life expectancy, I mean access to work and skills, and those the things that we know are the challenges that particular communities have in our city. I think if we do, and I'd like to measurably be part of doing that, but I think what would be exciting is if we do make progress on that, and we make progress on the economic case for Leeds and growing the city's economy and so on, what will happen will be, as I said earlier, thousands of things happening that we can't even imagine now. So if in 10, 14 years I look back and say, what have I done? Very little of it will actually be to do with me. But if the city has grown and changed, we tackled those things, there'll be people doing stuff, there'll be businesses doing things, community groups doing stuff that we can't even imagine now. And that I would love to be part of, and that's the unexpected. It's the spark, and I think again, if we tackle those challenges and stick to the task, what it will create in terms of the capacity that people have within themselves is it's going to be astonishing.
But that requires you're suggesting that will happen irrespective of your involvement, but quite clearly as the chief executive of this authority, if you don't develop the development of the strategies that will enable that to happen, it won't happen, and that requires leadership. And you do strike me as a bit of a leader, Ed, I have to say.
Well, we'll find out. But I mean, I think for me though, I'm going to do the best job I can. This is, as I say, I mean it. This is the honour of a lifetime. But it won't be me. It'll be the other people who are going to achieve it. But part of my job is to create a space where other people can step in and do amazing things. So I'm not here as the hero leader at all, because I think that's a terrible model of leadership. It doesn't work. I think it is about how do you create vision, take a place forward, help people to find their space, and lift up voices as well. So that's going to be how I want to do it.
I wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
And listen, thank you for your time today. It's been much fun, and I'm sure that as people listen to this, they will learn a lot about you, the ambition for the city, and where hopefully we're going. So thank you.